Good morning, Rubicon. Good morning, America. I bring with me a dragon. That clock goes faster than the taxi ride that was the charges that I incurred from the airport, so I've got to be careful. So I'm here. I've traveled from South Wales, and do I click the green one? Yes, good. Green means go. And this is my story. My faith tested as a father, as a son, as a husband, as a chiropractor. But I'm seen as a doctor of certainty, a teacher of certainty. And I know that our philosophy defines us. Now, there's two good-looking chaps up there. You can obviously recognize one on the left. Who's the one on the right? Thank you, Pete Bruzek, for recognizing the fact it is me as BJ Palmer. This whole thing encapsulates my whole life. And I'm from a country that has a huge amount of passion. Cymru am byth, Wales forever. We've produced American presidents. Nixon has Welsh heritage. We've got Tom Jones. Everybody heard of Tom? Don't throw your knickers on stage. Of course, we have Prince Charles associated to the family. And there's a wedding today. I was invited, but I thought that Rubicon was far more important. Owain Glyndŵr, who fought the English. And my country has been fighting the English for a long time. And the English used to turn up in Wales and build huge castles and paint them white to try and scare off the locals. But the Welsh always prevailed. And it's just a small little country. Everybody says, where is Wales? Is it near London? No, it's part of Great Britain. And we produced superstars, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Anthony Hopkins. But we've got a heritage of having to fight and survive, the coal miners. My chiropractic clinic is right next to the epicenter of the Industrial Revolution, where the monies were transferred between wealthy men who used to celebrate their monies by playing bowls with champagne glasses. But a lot of people sacrificed. And a lot of people are sacrificed in chiropractic as well. And we must always remember our history. I certainly remember mine and the association of sacrifices that were created. Now, that's the result of sacrifices. A railway in my garden. I promised my father when he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, with tumors through his mediastinum, a tumor the size of a grapefruit in his lower abdominal area. I said, Dad, if you survive this, and he was given 1 year to live in 2001, if you survive this, we'll buy that railway that I've wanted, and you've wanted since I was 5. 17 years later, my father is here. 4 weeks ago, he was given the all clear. They said, David, we don't understand why you are still alive. Nobody else survived the drugs that were given, and you're still here. And I take great joy in the fact that my father rang me and said, thank you. Thank you for chiropractic. And we learned yesterday that, from Dr. Lipton, that we have a significant effect on more than just neck and back pain. And the whole neck and back pain thing really frustrates me. Because we work with life on a daily basis. Now, I've got the Battle of Rorke's Drift there. And does anybody here watch the film Zulu? With Michael Caine? Stop throwing those bloody spears at me. He never said that, by the way. But in the battle at the beginning, towards the end, there was a scene when Lieutenant Chard turned to a Welsh officer and said, those Zulu warriors who've got a good voice, and they were chanting, and they were taking their spears and battering them on their shields. And the officer said, "Jew," he said, "they got a good baritone section, but they've got no tenors." And he started singing in response to this battle cry of the Zulu. And the Zulus had their belief system. Rorke's Drift was in Natal, and the British were invading areas, and they'd had enough. But there were men in there, Welsh men, who had been recruited by the British Armed Forces to go out and capture lands. They didn't want to be there. Some of us in this audience don't want the responsibility to change and save the world. It's a massive responsibility. But it's been thrust upon us. We've been chosen to be chiropractors, just as these men were chosen, 140 to 150 men chosen. At the beginning of this battle, you could hear, "Men of Hull, stop your dreaming. Can't you see their spearheads gleaming?" And they started marching towards these scared men against thousands of Zulu warriors. "Men of Hull, on to glory. This will ever be your story. Keep these burning words before he, Welshman will not yield." And they didn't yield. And they survived. 11 Victoria Crosses were given that day for bravery. And I believe there's bravery in all of us to go back, not just to sort of get G'd up and spizzed up by conferences like this, but to go back into our communities and change our communities with a science that is evident and is being proven by the likes of Heidi Harvik, who is an absolute legend. So I thought, well, maybe if there was a battle in 1879, and we are in this state where chiropractic is critical to the future of mankind as I see it, maybe I should sing a song to inspire us and take the words of an old Welsh hymn. Guide me, O thou great Redeemer, pilgrims of this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty, guide me with thy glorious hand. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Feed me till I want no more. As I walk through the valley of the blind, unlike most my vision is clear. I choose not to question chiropractic. I choose to live my life without fear. Fred, Sid, Reggie, may they be my strength and steel. May they be my strength and steel. As we stand on the banks of the Rubicon, no turning back, the boats have gone. We must preserve our art, science, wisdom, so chiropractic for generations lives on. Palmer's Lord of Life, BJ and his wife, guarding the sacred trust forevermore. Guarding the sacred trust forevermore. So I'm the sort of philosophy guy, singer, etc., etc. I do bar mitzvahs, weddings, and various other things. Philosophy, from the Greek philosophia, philosophos, literally the love of wisdom, is the study of general fundamental problems concerning matters such as existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. My philosophy at the time of this photograph was it was okay for my daughter to put mud on my son's face. I turn around and both children were covered in mud. I thought that was good. My wife did not. Science tells us what it is, the art tells us how it's done, and philosophy is the why of the other two. Stevenson, all chiropractors who really adjust the cause of disease, in the spine do use philosophy to some extent. Whether they believe it or not, whether they know it or not, anyone knowing the real meaning of philosophy knows that human activity has philosophy. I can never quite understand why philosophy is denied in our profession, because it is the underpinning of it. Now, some people say I'm the modern-day Reggie Gold. I think by this stage you probably don't think I am. And certainly when I met Irene, who was just an extraordinary lady, I burst into tears. I'd recently become a spinologist because maybe I'm not as welcome in the UK as I am across the pond. But I do hold his sentiments dear, and I learned a huge amount when I became a spinologist, just going back to the original principles of chiropractic. But I am, however, a chiropractor. I love chiropractic. I love being a chiropractor. I live and breathe chiropractic in one way or another. It consumes my thoughts when awake and when I'm sleeping. I believe the fellow within, without interference, can heal all disease. My dearest friends believe, as I do, that chiropractors have an important mission to perform, to lead our communities, enabling them to live a life without fear. My desire is to inspire chiropractors, to champion Palmer's law of life, to witness his acceptance, to develop the science, to master their art and devote their lives to the philosophy, so they, when it really counts, can apply certainty and belief through the power of the chiropractic adjustment and literally save lives. And certainly, what I will be going on to talk about, these philosophical principles, have played a significant role in the survival of certain very special people in my life. But, however, many chiropractors and many of the chiropractic institutions have abandoned our heritage for social acceptance at the expense of the principle. Many have chosen to ignore teaching the principles as they deem it antiquated, and the students are left denied of the bountiful knowledge that would actually enable success from the start of their professional careers, meaning for them significant debt, fear, and uncertainty of what they do. These factors alone deny the public of a message and a service that would otherwise enable their optimal human potential. My first quote. I'm very good at that. I'm quoting myself. Very good. Okay. So I got sent an email, a Facebook message from a student the other day, which appalled me. And certainly I am seen as the Antichrist of my former college. Students are banned from coming to my office, and if they do come, they come in secrecy, and they come to get adjusted. One young lady brought her newborn baby who was failing to thrive, and we adjusted the upper cervical spine, and the child obviously started to thrive. The head of the school that I was previously associated to said, no, Ben Mathew puts things into people's minds, and that's what gets them better. Your daughter was going to get better anyway. Maybe so, but the intervention of the removal of the subluxation at Atlas certainly made a significant difference. And the parents, both of which chiropractic students, due to their association, nearly didn't graduate because they knew me, which is abhorrent. But this is a question paper in prep. Well, so the study paper for the end of the year question paper for the second-year students at a British chiropractic institution. What are the aberrant practices that cause significant reputational damage to the profession? Adherence to a flawed chiropractic ideology focused on innate intelligence and vitalism. Anti-vaccination propaganda. Sorry about that, Andrew. Anti-physiotherapy, anti-medical sentiments, open-plan clinics, multiple people treated in the same room, fully dressed. I think they want everybody naked. Over-servicing. I don't know what that quite means. Use of the term subluxation as a valid diagnosis. Lifetime chiropractic in the name of wellness. Claims of cures for visceral and non-musculoskeletal conditions, anti-drug and anti-medicine propaganda, misleading and deceptive advertising, unscrupulous contracts of care, obligatory full spine x-rays, unnecessary treatment of babies, unfounded claims of decreased immunity from subluxation. Sorry about that, Bruce. An unhealthy disregard of clinical research. Oop. I think they need to attend this place. And non-specific treatment of effects of including natural history and the placebo effect. Does anybody find that awfully uncomfortable? Good. But this is what we're up against. It really is coming to a state now that Australia is under a huge amount of fire and various other countries as well. And the critical importance of the Rubicon Group is to actually stick a Zulu spear into this and forge our own path. The efforts of Dr. Riekman, Dr. Klum, Dr. Lamarche, and the endless people involved in this movement, I applaud you and I thank you. Because if it was not for you, then it is unlikely that any of us in this room will be able to pay our bills as chiropractors. And we should encourage everybody to attend this event. There are empty seats here. People aren't, it's a people thing. It's not a chiropractic thing, it's a people thing. People aren't prepared to sacrifice time. My son was on the phone yesterday and he was in floods of tears going, "Daddy, you don't love me anymore because you're not here this weekend." I said, "No, I'm here this weekend because I love you so much." He's 7. He doesn't quite understand that yet because he wants to play soccer with me. There are many in the profession who are thirsty for the full message of chiropractic, unknown to these countless thousands of sincere, dedicated chiropractors. Secret conspirators control the profession through ridicule and distortion of facts. I wish I'd met this man. He and I would have got on real well. I'm envious of so many of the people in this room who have had time to rub shoulders and hang out with these great people who enabled us our current status. And it's critically important that their memory does live on. And yes, some of the things that were said in the past may well be regretted and what have you, but at the end of the day, the essence of what they said was absolutely true. It was the survival of chiropractic for the betterment of society and the world in which we live. I had a wonderful experience leaving Cardiff Airport, which is basically a shed. It's very small. It's not really an international airport. You come to American airports, it's like, oh my goodness. But luckily, and I remember Reggie Gold saying this in one of his great CDs, he said, "I want everybody who's associated with my life to be subluxation free. I don't want a dentist removing a tooth from my mouth if he's subluxated. I don't want an airline pilot to be driving the plane if he's subluxated." And I had the most unbelievable confidence in the fact that the gentleman who was pushing tin was under my chiropractic care as I left. And I knew all was going to be okay. It was the best feeling. It's amazing. But yet, there are chiropractors who have no idea about the potential of chiropractic, and they have no idea about the principles. And really and truthfully, if they've only been looking at double-blinded placebo, randomly controlled double-blinded placebo, whatever it is, trials, that their only certainty is that I don't know how to get somebody into the office and charge 20 quid for initial consultation, examination, report of findings, and 2 treatments. And at the moment in my life, I am in the process of taking chiropractic out of the title of my office because I don't want to be associated with those types of chiropractors. In fact, I'm renaming my office, and you're the first people to hear this, after a green book, The Fellow Within, because it starts a conversation. It was my wife's idea. She's quite brilliant. She also said, you need to be known as the known man. So she calls me the hashtag known man. But it's not about neck and back pain. It's about the expression of life. And this photograph is this force coming down, trying to stop us from doing what we love dearly. And I, for one, certainly won't let that happen. I've used Sid a lot because I was given a signed copy of his book, Looking Back to See Ahead, and it's just extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And we must all spend time every week to review the words of these leaders. Chiropractic in its scientific simplicity is the link between the internal wisdom of life and the body when the head, heart, and hand of all chiropractors everywhere work together as one, informing people everywhere of the wonders of chiropractic, the result of which overwhelming victory for chiropractic in the eyes of the world. My faith tested, part 1. This is Harry. Harry has had an interesting start to life. This is in one of the cabs of the engines. This is Druid, number 33, painted green, like the Green Box. Harry was born 2nd of 5th, 2011, but he was due in July. He was 11 weeks prem. At this time, 7 years ago, I would not be able to speak like this unless it was for the occurrence of Harrison. My certainty in chiropractic has come through my son. The first adjustment he received, 2.5 pounds. I had no real idea what I was doing, and I certainly didn't do this. I used my pinky. I heard, use your pinky on the atlas. I was like, okay, use the pinky on the atlas. Ooh, heart and lung function went normal. Awesome. So I did that every time I went in. I just checked him. I checked him the way, as a father and as a chiropractor. And my wife was extraordinary. She was like a Frisian cow. She produced that much milk. She blocked up the fridges at the hospital, and I was having to take home huge amounts of milk. I could have done very well. But I wasn't listening hard enough, and I wasn't listening hard enough to the philosophical principles that promote health, life, and happiness, a philosophy that leads to a life without fear, as Dr. Bard would say. Because when it came down to it, and I spoke to the pediatric specialist and the Nazi midwife, the Gestapo, she said, now it is time to vaccinate your son. I said, well, that's not a bit early. Oh, we don't do correction here. I said, well, I'm not very happy about that. Have you actually read what's in the vaccines? Do you understand what's in the vaccine? Do you and the neurotoxicity, et cetera, et cetera? And my father-in-law, being a medical doctor, was kind of like, everybody's involved. And you kind of get all busy, and then they started mentioning social services. And the next thing I know, my son's had a vaccination, and I stare at that thing every day because my faith is continually tested. And to sit next to a man such as Andrew Wakefield, who has been through extraordinary, losing your profession, losing your respectability amongst your fellow peers, losing your country. And for him to stand on the stage this morning was one of those moments in life that none of us should ever forget. I'll come back to Harry. So my faith had been tested initially, and I wasn't strong enough to deal with it. So I wasn't going to make that mistake twice. And Mabel, named after Mabel Palmer, of course. My wife was pretty nervous about the whole situation, and my wife is probably the most important person in my whole life. Apart from my mother, obviously. She's quite important in that, and father, I suppose. But with regards to the freedom to do what I want to do, she, coming from a medical background, has completely stepped across from one paradigm to another. And we were in the hospital, and Izzy's waters had broken, and she hadn't dilated. And the doctor comes in and said, oh, well, what we're going to do is we're going to induce you tomorrow. I said, we're not going to let nature take its course. And she said, no need necessary. We will induce her tomorrow, and the baby will arrive tomorrow. And she walked out. And I said to the nurse in attendance, I said, have you read the recent research on induction, et cetera, et cetera? She said, that won't matter. I said, well, it might matter to the immune system of my daughter and my wife, especially because now you want to give them antibiotics. It's not going to happen too. She said, well, if you're going to take that attitude, sir, you can go now. So my poor wife sitting there. And I said, do you want an adjustment, dear? She said, I think that would be a good idea. So I adjusted the second cervical on the left-hand side, which is a listing associated to the emotional aspect of the vagus nerve. She was nervous. She didn't want to let go of that child because she was so bloody scared about what happened to Harrison. So we adjusted C2. She went from 0 to fully dilated. I was like, oh, I think the baby's coming. She said, oh, damn right she thinks the baby's coming. Can you go and get some assistance? So I grabbed a nurse, and I said, my wife, I think, is going into full labor, and I think the baby's coming. She said, no, we're inducing tomorrow. I was like, okay, I'll find another nurse. So I went to... So I grabbed the other nurse, and I said, the most powerful word there is on the planet. Will you please check my wife's vagina? Oh my goodness, she's fully dilated. Mabel came 20 minutes later. The doctor with the paperwork to sign us out said, oh, the baby's arrived. How did that happen? I was feeling pretty smug at this time, but obviously I didn't follow that up. And we've all been there. These stories, they've been going on for 100 years. But Mabel obviously is a very well and tenacious and is going to test Daddy. That'll be a test of faith that I may not overcome. As we chiropractors accept chiropractic for what it is and ourselves for what we are, the world will be quick to follow our example just as surely as day follows night. Absolutely. Total agreement. Faith tested part 3. Harrison has got some things attached to his head because it's measuring his brain activity. Harrison now has childhood epilepsy, petit-mal epilepsy. He got to the stage where he's up to 60 seizures a day, and there is a bit of outside intervention now, which is coming through CBD oil, which is certainly making a significant impact. And we've been to loads of different chiropractors, and we've been to cranial specialists, and we've done it. And the answer is in my hands, because I know my son best, and I've had to work it out. And Harrison's seizure has gone from 60 to he can have bad days, but he's generally having better days. But the syncope drop attack that preceded this, when we went to the hospital and he banged his head, they weren't interested in his head. And I said, are you not going to check my son's brain activity? 2 concussive injuries to the occiput in a day. They said, no, but we'll check his heart. I said, okay. So they checked his heart, and they came up with a diagnosis of Wolff-Petersen-White syndrome. And they said that there are chances that my son will die. So the best thing to do is to open up his chest to see if his heart can take it. Of course, I agreed not to agree with them. What I did do is I let them do the medical thing. Again, not fully trusting in my assessment of my son. I then said, right, come on, son, this is time to really take control. So we took an X-ray. X-raying a child. It's bad. 3 mil displacement of the 3rd cervical vertebra. That might be significant. We adjusted it. It took me 2 weeks to actually get my hands on my son after the incident. It took a lot of persuading. And I said, Harry, you're going to cry hard after this. You're going to let some stuff go. And he did. He cried and he wailed and he went to his mum. He didn't want to see me or touch me for a day or so. And I said, you're fixed now, Harry, after a couple of days. So we went back because once you're in the system, you've got to be in the system. And I told the specialist I didn't want to see the other cardiologist. And the other cardiologist said, well, it doesn't seem to be that Wolff-Petersen-White syndrome is there anymore. I said, well, that's funny you should say that because it's not a transient disease. So anyway, I have to I do hold guilt. And it's guilt to the fact that I was not educated enough. And it's important that we educate ourselves and listen to the fellow within. The master maker of the human body did not create and then run off and leave you masterless. He stayed on the job as innate as the fellow within, as nerve transmission controlling every function of life, as spirit above, down, inside out, expressing, creating, exploring, directing into you and in every field, phase of experience. So your home is truly your world and your world is truly your home. In the past 2 centuries, nothing has changed, however. Men, especially chiropractors, must still stand up and be counted because of the prosecution and prejudice there's been long in our history and past, and doctors of chiropractic have needed an inner strength to overcome a multitude of obstacles. I had the wonderful opportunity of just shaking Dr. Spitelli's hand. What a legend. We are surrounded by legends in this room. We're living in a time when those people are our strength and steel. They have fought a good fight and the major battles have been won, but there must be no cessation of the effort. We must continue on this journey. We must, as part of the Rubicon, of which I am honored to be a part of now, the struggle for freedom must be ever constant. The strongest link in chiropractic chain of principles and practices is the understanding, knowledge, and acknowledgement of the practical application of innate intelligence of working reality within and internal to all living creatures, B.J. Palmer. Now, my time is running out, but I might go over. Is that okay? Good. Thank you. Aggregate man today is a wreck, deliberately produced by himself, upon himself, with super-educated malice after thought, year after year, century after century, method after method, forcibly producing useless human wrecks along its path. We heard from Andy today about the fact that the end of the world, it's a reality as we know it. And we play a significant role in hopefully changing that. Chiropractic's biggest weakness has been and still is communication, clarity, and certainty. And I was going to read Ultimates, but I encourage you to go and read it because it describes how the communication of chiropractic is so important. Go to your green books, study them, learn from them. Dr. Fruster, the man. You could say that I'm feeling the heat at the moment. I should have stayed in my lane. Should I have stayed in my lane? Is there a lane anymore? I'll find out in September as to whether I am still able to call myself a chiropractor in the United Kingdom. But we've been through 3 suspension hearings, and those are my legal team there, and hopefully good will out. Dualities. This is important. And the culmination of my thoughts. I think it's important that we read from a green book. It's not often that that's done. Innate thinking lives on, always the same in millions of people, millions of years, regardless of color, creed, or country. It never dies. Innate thinks universal series of thoughts, speaks universal language, regardless of geography, proves that thoughts and act by actions, motions, functions in all people, all time, bipeds, quadrupeds alike. That is what makes chiropractic an applied universal law. Innate has builded all people alike, regardless of race, color, geography, regardless of multitude of variable thoughts on which they educationally differ. Backbones are backbones. Subluxations are subluxations. Interferences are interferences. Adjustments are adjustments. Sicknesses are sicknesses. Health is health, to all alike. The internal law of life, sickness, death, and restoration of life and health is universal, biped and quadruped. There is no French subluxation or Russian adjustment separating one from another. Our educated recognition that the innate is a personality thinking greater qualified expressions than the educated personality is what makes it possible for us to be of greater service to mankind. Majority admit your personality and usually deny or ignore innate within also being one such. Why? Neither has face, form, figure, function, except as each we express in action what it thinks through matter. We think we know education does. Logically, we can admit innate does, the same in the same way. Self-preservation is the first law of innate. Did you ever watch a human die? How innate fights and clings tenaciously to continue to live in its habitat as long as possible. Letting innate work with education, you win. If education denies, opposes, or tries to change innate, you lose. When chiropractors understand and know this great law within, they become a servant to service and let innate cooperate with education to accomplish innate's desires and demands. For everything that occurs, there is a reason, and behind that reason is a law. Ignorance of law breeds educated phenomena and religious miracles. Seek ye innate, and you shall meet law. Did you ever watch a human die? How innate fights, clings tenaciously, continue to live in its habitat as long as possible. May 27th, 1961. Everybody know that date? B.J. Palmer passed away. On the same day in 2017, my mother passed away in my arms. I'd just come back from a trip to Ireland to see a functional medicine doctor, see if he could help with Harrison's seizures. We came back, we had lunch. After about an hour, my mum walked up to me and said, "Could you come with me?" I said, "Yes, Mum, what's up?" She said, "I'm dying, and I don't want the children to see me die." I said, "Mum, we've just had lunch." She said, "No, something's gone on the inside, and I'm dying, and I don't know what it is, but I need you to know that you must continue to be a chiropractor, look after your family, and that I love you." If my mum was going to transition at that time, I wanted to make sure that physiologically there was no obstruction to her transition. So I picked Mum up as she felt pressure she started to have difficulty breathing, and I adjusted the second cervical. The pain in her chest increased, the pressure in her chest increased. I adjusted T1 and she relaxed. I sat her up. She gave me the last will and testament. She looked in my eyes. She said, "I love you." And she passed on. Now, at that point, if I had not understood the principles of chiropractic, if I had not trusted in the innate of the body and understand the limitations of matter, what I did next would never have come to me. I lay Mum down. Dad asked me what's happened. I think Mum's passed on, Dad. And my dad was obviously very upset. She was fixed and dilated. Her heart had stopped. And there was no pulses. So I took a pisiform contact over her heart, and I don't know where this came from, and I adjusted it with all the love that I could give to give her a chance. I got down behind Mum. I said, "It's okay, Mum." Her eyes were open. She was breathing. I remember a gentleman by the name of Danny Constable who did a suboccipital release on his father to calm him when he was about to transition. I remember the time when I listened to Patrick Gentempo talk about the time he adjusted somebody on a beach and brought them back to life. All these things came flooding back, and I pumped that cerebrospinal fluid the best I could pump it for 40 minutes until the emergency services arrived, and Mum was taken to hospital and discharged that evening.
My name is Liz Mathew. I'm Ben Mathew's mum, and this is Paddy, my little Pekingese here. And I am fortunate enough to be here, sitting here, having spent the loveliest day with Ben and Lizzie and the grandchildren and my husband and Ben's dogs out of Penryn because of Ben. I was taken very seriously ill a year ago, and it's only due to chiropractic that I'm able to sit here and talk to you this evening. It was an amazing experience, and I thank chiropractic every single day for saving me and for enabling me to carry on my weekly, daily, monthly work with adjustments that I now have from Ben at his clinic. And I would like to wish you all a very, very happy weekend and a very successful weekend to you all. Learn a lot. It is worth learning about. I think chiropractic is an amazing, amazing thing to do, and have a great weekend, and cheers from us both.
Our true inheritance lies in our ability to make and shape chiropractic so it will survive for all time to come. Thus we become creators of our own professional destiny. What you're doing this weekend is doing that. Remember, chiropractic always works when it does not seem to examine your application, but never question the principle. From early childhood, I have had a profound reference for the wee small voice within myself that I listened to as a young boy. Sincere that time, I found a spiritual peace that I can call innate awareness. I seek for myself a constant moment-by-moment relationship with the innate understanding and yield to the wisdom that this relationship provides me in its many pursuits. He dared to defend the principle. Do you dare for your family? Diolch Rubicon. Thank you. And good health to you all. I love and respect all of you. Thank you for your time.